Today, chili peppers are almost everywhere. Sichuan hot pot boils with red chili oil. People in Hunan treat chili like a main dish. And in many Guizhou families, people even make a fresh bowl of chili dipping sauce every single day. Today, many Chinese people can no longer imagine what Chinese food would even look like without chili peppers. But here's the thing, more than 400 years ago, China had no chili peppers at all, and not even the idea that Sichuan food is spicy. So how did the small red fruit from the Americas completely transform the Chinese sense of taste in just a few hundred years? Today, when people think of Chinese spicy food, they immediately think of chili peppers. But if you traveled back to China 1,000 years ago, you would discover that people there also ate spicy food. It just wasn't the kind of spicy we know today. The spicy flavor of ancient China was more like a strong, intense fragrance. The numbing taste of Sichuan pepper, the sharpness of ginger, and the plant that is almost forgotten today, Zhuyu. More than 2,000 years ago, Chinese people were already using it in meat and soup. In ancient Sichuan, many people even ground Zhuyu into sauces for everyday seasoning. In other words, China's obsession with spicy flavors is much older than chili peppers themselves. The spicy flavor of that era wasn't the burning heat of chili peppers. It was more of an intense aromatic spice, something like a mix of Sichuan pepper, ginger, and citrus flavors. You could say that Zhuyu ruled Chinese kitchens for over 2,000 years. But later, it met an opponent it could almost never defeat, the chili pepper. It was spicier, cheaper, and easier to grow. Most importantly, it made poor people's food finally taste like something. And this small red fruit that changed Chinese food did not originally belong to Asia at all. It came from the other side of the world, the Americas, where thousands of years ago, the indigenous people of Central and South America were already cultivating and eating it. At the end of the 15th century, with the age of exploration in Europe, the world began to connect like never before. Corn, potatoes, tomatoes, tobacco, and chili all crossed oceans, leaving their native lands. Historians call this the Columbian exchange. About 400 years ago, in the late Ming Dynasty, chili arrived in China. At first, people just thought the little red fruits were pretty and used them as ornamental plants. But soon, the Chinese discovered this little plant could thrive in China's environment. It was easy to grow, high-yielding, and could survive on poor soil. Most importantly, it was really spicy. For the poor, even if meals were just coarse grains, pickles, or plain rice, a little chili made the food flavorful. In times of scarce meat, oil, and spices, chili became an inexpensive way to feel satisfied. In humid, mountainous, and poor regions like Sichuan, Guizhou, and Hunan, chili spread quickly. It not only whetted the appetite, but also added layers of flavor to otherwise plain meals. You could say the adoption of chili wasn't because it was fancy, but because the poor needed it so badly. Over hundreds of years, this little red fruit from the Americas completely transformed the Chinese palate. Today, many think eating spicy food is just a matter of taste preference. But in the past, for the poor, chili was an essential part of the meal. About 300 to 500 years ago, during the Ming and Qing dynasties, China's population grew rapidly and the land became scarce. For many mountain families, a day's meals might be nothing more than corn, rice, pickled vegetables, or a pot of wild vegetable soup with almost no oil or fat. Meat might only be eaten a few times a year. This was especially true in Guizhou, Hunan, and western Sichuan, where mountains were abundant, transportation was difficult, and the land was poor. Many places even faced chronic salt shortages, and salt was actually very expensive in ancient times. Chili perfectly solved the problem of monotonous food. Cheap, easy to grow, high yield, and very spicy. Even a little added spice could instantly make bland food flavorful. In a sense, chili acted like a flavor amplifier, giving plain meals a first ever sense of satisfaction. As a result, chili spread quickly among the poor, made into chili paste, chili powder, dipping sauces, or even mixed directly into rice. In some areas of Guizhou, there might be no meat on the table, but there was always a bowl of chili dipping sauce. For the poor, chili was almost the meal itself. So, chili truly conquered China not through the courts, but by first winning over the poor. If you look at China's spicy food map, you'll notice something interesting. The places that eat the spiciest food are almost all concentrated in the southwest: Sichuan, Chongqing, Guizhou, and Hunan. But the truly interesting question is not simply where is spicy. It's this: why did these particular places become the spiciest regions in China? The place that explains this best is probably Chongqing. Many years ago, Chongqing was one of the most important port cities along the upper Yangtze River. Countless ships, cargo, and laborers gathered there. Back then, Chongqing did not have the bright skyscrapers it has today. Instead, there were wet stone stairways, fog-covered riverbanks, and dock workers soaked in sweat all day long. Many pullers and laborers spent every day carrying heavy cargo. They often worked shirtless for more than 10 hours a day in hot and humid conditions. And the food they needed usually only had a few requirements: cheap, high in calories, strong in flavor, and filling. And so, a food that would later change all of China began to appear: hot pot. The earliest Chongqing hot pot was not some kind of high-class cuisine. It was more like a shared dinner for poor laborers. Cheap beef organs, animal intestines, and leftover meat scraps were thrown into a boiling pot. Then, huge amounts of chili and Sichuan pepper were added. Because chili could cover up unpleasant smells, and the intense stimulation made people sweat and heat up quickly. For people doing exhausting physical labor every day, that feeling was extremely satisfying. Slowly, spicy food became a physical habit. That's why, even today, many people in Chongqing say if hot pot isn't spicy, it's pointless. And Chongqing is not the only example. The Sichuan Basin was cold and humid for long periods. Guizhou's mountain regions were poor and lacked salt, and Hunan demanded intense agricultural labor. These places shared several things in common: hard lives, simple food, and chili peppers, which could provide the strongest stimulation and satisfaction at the lowest cost. So, the spiciest regions in China were often the places where ordinary people once lived the hardest lives. Spicy food has never been just about flavor. In many ways, it is a way of survival, shaped together by geography, poverty, and labor. However, not all of China loves spicy food. For example, Guangdong. Guangdong is coastal and historically prosperous in trade, with plenty of fresh fish, shrimp, and seafood. Cantonese cuisine emphasizes natural freshness and the original flavor of ingredients. Food is already flavorful, so there's no need to use a lot of chili to stimulate the taste. Guangdong, Shanghai, and the Jiangsu-Zhejiang area didn't develop very spicy food habits overall. Thus, China's spice map isn't random. Chili didn't just change flavors, it also changed how people live, work, and eat together. Today, when many people think of Chinese food, the color that comes to mind is often red. The bubbling red oil of hot pot, the chili powder covering mapo tofu, plates of spicy chicken buried under dried chilies, Hunan-style stir-fried pork with chili peppers, and the dipping sauces that Guizhou people eat with almost every meal. These flavors now seem as if they have always belonged to China. Many people even believe Chinese food was always supposed to be spicy. But the shocking part is this: all of this only happened within the last few hundred years. Because before chili peppers arrived in China, the intensely spicy Chinese flavor people know today simply did not exist. What truly changed the Chinese sense of taste was the chili pepper. This small red fruit from the Americas almost rewrote the foundation of Chinese cooking. Because it was too powerful, cheap, high yield, easy to grow, and with just a little bit, it could make an entire dish intense, exciting, and addictive. As a result, a completely new world of flavor began to appear in southwest China. More importantly, many dishes now considered traditional Chinese food were actually formed only after the age of chili peppers began. In a way, chili peppers did not simply join Chinese cuisine, they reinvented a part of it. What they changed was not just flavor. They changed how people cook, how people eat with rice, how people gather around meals, and how people chase that feeling of satisfaction. Even today, when many Chinese people judge a dish, their first reaction is still, is it spicy enough? This small red fruit that only arrived in China a few hundred years ago has now become as natural as air itself. so natural that many people have forgotten. It was once a foreign outsider. Many people think that Chinese people love spicy food simply because of the flavor. That's not entirely true. Chili brings a strong physical sensation. It makes people sweat, feel hot, burn in the mouth, and their heartbeat quicken. Sometimes people shout, "It's too spicy," while still eating. Spiciness is actually not a taste. It's more like a kind of pain, a burning sensation. And strangely, humans gradually come to crave this sensation. In the past, the lives of many ordinary people were actually very harsh and constrained. Long hours of labor, damp environments, poverty, little meat, little oil, and a long-term monotonous diet. For many lower-class laborers, the real moments of joy in life were very few. But chili peppers were different. They were cheap, direct, and intense. Just a little was enough to make people sweat, feel heat, burn in the mouth, and become briefly exhilarated. For many who were long exhausted, poor, and oppressed, what chili peppers offered was not just flavor. It was a kind of a cheap, immediate, and instantly felt pleasure. So, what many people became truly addicted to might not have been the chili itself, but the feeling of truly coming alive. So what people are truly addicted to isn't just the spice itself, but the joy and release chili brings. That's why even when sweating and lips tingling from the heat, people still say, "Add a little more chili." Today, chili peppers have become one of the most essential parts of Chinese flavor. But they actually only arrived in China a few hundred years ago. A small red fruit from the Americas ultimately changed more than just Chinese cuisine. It changed how the poor ate, how laborers experienced satisfaction, and even redefined what it means to truly enjoy something. Sometimes what changes a civilization isn't war, an emperor, or ideas. It could be something as simple as a flavor.